Thank you, Joe. First of all, welcome everybody. Okay, I know Moroccans can't hear me. Good? Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. You should know that personally I have a big kesher to the Baba Sali. I've seen many, many miracles in Zchut of Baba Sali. Even my divorce, my 2-year divorce, got finished in the hilloula of Baba Sali. Only the Baba Sali I needed to finish his divorce. So you can see. So I have a tremendous hatarat tov, and I'm so thankful to be hosting this hilloula today in the Zchut of Rav Nachman. So I'm going to give you guys, Baruch Hashem, we have a lot of classes on quieting the mind. Okay, guys, you want to just listen for I know we're Moroccan here. We have to listen for a minute. Okay, so we'll start with, since I'm a quarter Moroccan, I think I can give a joke about Moroccan.
Are you really?
So this is a good Moroccan wife is there when the husband's angry, she's there to calm him down. And when she's calm, she's there to get him angry. Right. All right, so we're going to start with the class. Okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to start with the class. So today, most people nowadays are more focused on how stressed they are than how blessed they are. This is a common theme nowadays. I get many phone calls from a lot of people. Oh, Gedalia, look at my life. So the majority of our focus today is how stressed we are, not how blessed we are. So this is a big problem nowadays, because unfortunately nowadays our minds are draining out our lives. I work in the mental health field, and I'm seeing it all day long. Unfortunately, people's minds are draining people out. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to give you some tools on how to fix it. So again, the majority of people today, they're not focused on how blessed they are. So when people tell me, oh, I can't believe what's going on in my life. Are you healthy? Yes. Is your marriage good? Yes. Are your kids good? Yes. So focus on what you have, not what you don't have. So the number one problem is you have to focus on what you have. Rabbi Nachman's main message was Azamra. Focus on your good points, not on your negative points. So this is the number one thing that we have to control our mind, is what we focus on. Because if we can't get that, we don't have anything. So Rabbi Nachman says, the majority, why does a person today not have mental health? Why can't a person get close to Hashem? What do you guys think the number one reason? What do you think the number one reason why you can't get close to Hashem? Rabbi Nachman said it very clearly. He says very simple. He says, because you don't have a settled mind. You don't have a settled mind. Most people have anxiety over the future. They're thinking about the future. So they have anxiety about what's going to happen, or they're depressed about the past. So if you're not, the only way to be happy is be in the present. You can't have gratitude if you're not in the present. As long as you're thinking about the future, you're never going to be happy, because you're always waiting for something to happen. If you're thinking about the past, you're stuck in the mud, God forbid. So Rav Nachman's main message was, you got to settle your mind. What's the number one way to settle your mind? Be in the present. How do we be in the present? Gratitude. You understand? I can't say thank you to God if I'm thinking about my mortgage tomorrow. I can't. I'll be lying to myself. I can't say thank you to God if I have a problem that I'm still stuck on. So if we don't focus on what we focus on, we're going to get drowned out. So the main message is here is is to be focused on the now. Today's today. Don't worry about tomorrow if you have today, because what happens is you're going to lose that tomorrow, and then you're going to lose that the next day. And that's what's happening with people, is their lives are being cut short because they can't focus on today. So the key to have a settled mind is to be focused. So we're going to talk about a little bit how to do this. Rav Nachman spoke about his bodedut. How many people do his bodedut here? So you have maybe 4%, 5%. Okay, not bad. 5-6%. We're in an Orthodox synagogue. We're not even in a conservative. So you see the old-fashioned prayer to Hashem is lost. We don't have the old-fashioned prayer to Hashem. More people are worried. Their minds are running, but their mouths are shut. All day long the mind is running. I said, with all your problems, how much time did you spend talking about the problem? 0. How much time did you spend thinking about the problem? 5 hours. So when you're thinking about the problem for 5 hours and you're not speaking about the problem to Hashem, then at the end of the day, that's your life. So we're going to have an amazing article here from this rabbi here. And he says very simple. He says, if one wishes to experience the spiritual experience, for example, you can't be a spiritual being. First you have to become a human being. You can't be spiritual without becoming human. That's the number one thing. What is that? You have to have good midot. It means without the good midot, without being honest, you can't be spiritual if you're not a human being. That's the number one thing. So he says, if you want to experience a spiritual experience, the first thing you have to do is shut your mind. You understand? First thing is silence. If you want to get any kind of spirituality, it's not by buying a kamiya, it's not by buying a sigula. First thing you need to do is silence your mind. Silence your mind. It says if one wishes to truly acknowledge the world, you have to be able to have silence. The number one thing we have to have is silence. He says here, it's not the mind, it's the mind, not the body that needs to slow down. What's happening today? The bodies are not moving. People are stuck on problems, they don't move. But the mind is moving. So you have to do what? You have to shut the mind and open your mouth. That's the real key. Instead of all day long, you're thinking, but you're not talking. Talking is going to get you help from Hashem. Thinking is going to get you nowhere. So we have to shut our minds. Number one thing, we have to shut our minds and start moving. That's the number one thing. So he says here, he says, we don't suffer from a lack of information. There's plenty of information nowadays. You can Google, you can have Torah classes every minute. You know what we suffer from today? Lack of direction. There's a lack of direction today. You understand? Even when I'm talking, people don't even hear it. You understand the problem? Even when you're talking, people don't even hear it. That's how drowned out people are, too stimulated. So he's saying here that direction comes from the heart. You have to slow down your thinking and you have to listen to your heart. Your heart is where your soul is. Your soul is your spiritual guide to tell you what your mission is in life. If you can't shut your mind and listen to your heart, you're not going to get any signal in life. And then you're going to be triggered by emotions. You understand why it's so important? Feeling from the heart is a lost art. Nowadays, that's why Breslov, Rav Nachman's main emphasis is you got to have a relationship with God, not a tradition. How come so many people are not connected to Judaism nowadays? Because they're treating it as a tradition. There's no relationship. What do you need in a relationship? What's the number one thing you need in a relationship? Why do relationships go bad? Number one, lack of communication. There's no communication with your Creator. If there's no communication with your Creator, then the relationship gets bad, and at the end of the day, you don't feel like connecting to Hashem. So the first thing we have to do is, first of all, we're lost in the world because we're first lost with ourselves. You can't find Hashem if you can't find yourself. Does everybody understand that? How do you find yourself? You kind of quiet the mind and isolate yourself through His bodedut. Do you understand? You can't connect to Hashem if you cannot connect to your own self. You understand? It's a very, very deep message that we have to understand. But what's today? Everybody's on their phones, nobody listens, everybody's so distracted. So these behaviors continue to drown us out. And then we don't understand why we can't get out of the problems. In order to get out of a problem today, you need a higher consciousness. That means if you're living on mochim kadnut, if a person's living on small-mindedness, he can never get out of the problem unless he changes his consciousness. So how do you know your consciousness? Only through the Torah. But if you can't shut your mind and you can't feel your heart, you can't find yourself, you're not going to find Hashem. So this is really what I tell people. You have to spend some time by yourself. You have to start talking to Hashem. Rav Nachman says in a beautiful Torah, he says, when a person isolates himself and talks to Hashem, it's an aspect of Ruach HaKodesh. That means God's going to tell you what to pray for. He's going to send you the prayer on what you need to fix. But what do you have to do? You have to get out there and do it. But today, I ask people, with all these problems you have, why don't you sit there and talk to Hashem? I don't have any time. It's like telling the guy, I have no gas. Here, you need to get gas. No, I don't have time to get gas. So what happens? He runs out of gas. He runs out of gas, and then he starts blaming people. So, how do we know what a person's emunah is? How do you know your emunah? How do we know our emunah today? You know, emunah is the number one reason for a person, God forbid, if he doesn't have emunah, it's the number one reason for a person going into exile. God forbid, all of a person's problems today, all of his emotions are due to one thing, lack of emunah. If you're depressed, if you have anxiety, it's only because you have lack of emunah. So what's the number one indication of emunah? How much time do you pray? If you believed in the prayer, you would say, you know what? I'm not going to sit there and try to convince my Moroccan wife that I'm right. I have no shot. I have absolutely no shot. So what am I going to do? It's better off I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and pray to Hashem. Whatever you said, brother. But I'm just trying to tell you. Nowadays we're more worried about finding who insulted us than why we reacted to the insult. You understand? We're not getting in our soul state today. We're always reacting, responding. Look what that person did to me. Why did you respond to his reaction like that? So we're not getting down to the deepness of what we need to do. So emunah really is the key to everything. And how do we do that? You have to drown out. You have to get into your soul state. That's why I tell people, soul searching, what's stopping you from soul searching? Your ego. Your ego says, I'm going to start praying to him now. What am I going to go isolate myself? I have no time. The ego is the Yetzer Hara. The ego always needs attention. The ego always needs passion. The ego needs stimulation. Even if we talk about people fixing their Brits. How come people cannot fix their Brit? What? I'm a single guy. What am I? What is my? I have needs. No, your ego has needs. If you're in your soul state, you don't need to do that. But your ego always needs more and more and more and more. So unfortunately, we're run by our egos. If we get run by our egos, then we can never connect ourselves to our soul. And that's your mission. Remember, the number one key to happiness is giving and growing. As long as if a person does not connect to his soul state, he'll never grow. And ask yourself, how much growth did you do in the past year? How much growth did you do in the past 2 years? Ask yourself. You have to ask yourself, because if you're not constantly getting better, there's a problem. Something's not working. So that's why the best way, Rav Nachman says, is a person has to talk to his Creator, start having his bodhidut, start taking your life seriously. So this way, you stop attacking problems. You stop attacking why things are happening to a person. Rav Nachman says here, on lesson 155, something very beautiful. He says, a person having a lack of faith today is what? It's like he is like the dirt. That means if a person doesn't have good dirt, if he doesn't have good earth, he can put any plant and any little wind that comes by, what happens? If the guy's dirt is not good, if he doesn't have a good foundation, any little problem the guy has, he gets an email, oh, I'm finished. It's like the guy that started with the Bezrat Hashem. In the beginning of his business, he says, oh, Bezrat Hashem, everything, BH. Bezrat Hashem to everything, right? Everything, he put on the email, Bezrat Hashem, every single time, oh, good night, Bezrat Hashem, Bezrat Hashem. I said, wait till you have a couple weeks in business. We'll see how long you're going to say Bezrat Hashem. So what happens? What happens? I see 2 weeks, the guy's not saying Bezrat Hashem anymore. I said, what happened to you, Mr. Holy Jew? What happened to you with Mr. Bezrat Hashem? No, I had a problem in business. I think I'm going to close the business. So you can see this guy had no foundation. He had no emunah. He had no emunah because any little problem knocks you out. So Rav Nachman compares emunah to good dirt. That means if you have good emunah, what do you have? Anything that you put grows. But if you don't have good emunah, any little headache, you get insulted, I'm finished. I can't take it anymore. You have no good, you don't have emunah. And emunah is your foundation. So nowadays, this is the fight. The fight is the fight of emunah. The fight is your foundation. If you don't have a foundation, any little day is going to knock you out. So a person has to start building emunah through his bodhidut. In this parsha we read about kotzer ruach. It says the Jews had a kotzer ruach, so their work was hard. Right in the parsha we just read that the Jews were kotzer ruach ve'avodah kasha. What do you mean they didn't have oxygen in Egypt? No, it doesn't mean they didn't have oxygen. They had plenty of oxygen. But you can tell a person's mind frame by the way he breathes. When a person's angry, what does he do? He's always breathing. Oh, I can't take it. He's not breathing. We know your contemplation today, a person's ability to think, is based on his breathing. Now, if he's not breathing properly, it's because what? He's an emotional mess. He can't control his anger. So what happens? When you huff and puff, your life is very difficult. So how do we connect to our breath? Sometimes you don't have to answer back all the time. I know we're emotional people. Somebody insults you, your ego wants to respond. Your soul doesn't care. Your soul doesn't need anybody's approval. Your ego needs everybody's approval. Look what this guy said to me. Look what that guy said to me. Your soul needs nothing. Your ego wants He's right, I'm forgive. If he doesn't say I'm sorry to me, I'm never gonna forgive him. That's the ego talking. So we got to get back into our soul state. So the key if a person has a good mind frame is how he breathes. Does he breathe full? That means he has a munah, he doesn't get knocked out by any problem? Or does he have a kotzer ruach? Does he have a short breath because he can't handle life problem? Unfortunately, I see this in drug rehab. I see people, after the breath is gone, I see them, God forbid, addicted to painkillers. Number 2 pills in the country. Anti-anxiety and anti-depression. It's a serious matter. 25% of women over 40 are on antidepressants. So if you don't control your mind, if you don't control what you think about, if you don't control, you get in your soul state, God forbid, you're going to end up with a doctor and he's going to give you a prescription for Prozac or Xanax. I see it all day long, and God forbid, I see people all of a sudden be addicted to these pills. So this is serious. This is not a joke. The number one thing I recommend people, quiet your mind. Isolate yourself. Get some introspection with yourself. And then at the end of the day, you can grow. Otherwise, you're just an emotional wreck. So in the Schut of the Baba Sali, may we take this opportunity. Remember, Baba Sali, master of prayer. There's a reason, but Baba Sali was Baba Sali. He prayed, he was the number one prayer. So when we have the Schut of the Tzaddik, to be able to quiet our minds, to be able to go into our soul state, and that's when you're really going to be happy. All right? That's it.
All right. Music.